friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie, yo, 800 and what? That in that neighborhood, my brothers and sisters. Before we get into today's video, I just want to let y'all know that tomorrow I have a very special announcement to make on our live stream, Bean Team. And I'm just going to leave it at that for now. I'm just going to leave it at that. I have a special announcement to make. But for now, it is time for another reaction, suggestion, Friday. Another RSF, my friends. And as y'all can see, I'm ready to pick a winner. In 5, 4, 3, 2... And the winner is Rochelle Robinson. Shout out to Rochelle, man. Rochelle says, it's my birthday Sunday, Bean Team. I'ma change my pick recommendation to Unimaginable Cruelty, the story of Wanda Rodriguez by Evil Intentions. Jose Ortiz from Evil Intentions. Hey, shout out to you, Rochelle. Thank you for being a member of the Bean Team All-Stars. And also, happy belated birthday. Hope you enjoyed your birthday. And I hope you enjoy this video that we're about to get into that you recommended that I react to. And I will be right back, Bean Team. I will be right back. I'm back, my friends. And we are going back to Evil Intentions. Jose put this video out 2 years ago, but Rochelle want us to check it out, and we're about to do just that. And the title of the video is The Monster Who Escaped, the story of Wanda Rodriguez. 30-year cold case now solved. Now that's just a weight off my heart right there. Just the fact that going into the story, I already know that it's solved, Bean Team. You know what I'm saying, man? But it's still sad. I already know it's about to be effed up. But at least at the end of the day, we know it's a solved case. And I'm ready to get into it. But before we get into it, Bean Team, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. We are going back to Jose Ortiz from Evil Intentions. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
This section of the Bronx in New York City, like many others, holds a lot of memories. Kids coming to and from school, people in and out of their homes all day to get errands done. The holidays just ended and many of the apartments in the area likely had family gatherings, celebrating the year and appreciating time with their loved ones as it should be. But not every memory around here is a fond one, because if you visit 197th Street and Webster Avenue, you'd be steps away from where one of the most heinous killings in all of the Bronx took place in October of 1990, and barely anybody has ever even heard of it. And a small child named Yalitza, only 8 years old at the time, saw the entire thing. The victim on the other end of that savage attack was a woman by the name of Wanda Rodriguez, Yalitza's mother. The person responsible for the attack, 8-year-old Yalitza's own father, and she's had to bear the weight of that memory all her life. And while he was never caught, the information revealed after 3 decades would leave us with one question. When the laws can't catch up to the people who commit these evil deeds, does the universe find its own way to hold them accountable?
I have this feeling, I've always had this feeling that I'm gonna be heard. I'm just seeking what's right. Justice for Wanda.
On today's episode of Evil Intentions, this is the story of Wanda Rodriguez.
Get whatever you may need. And before we get into it, y'all, I just want to speak on what Jose said right there when he was like, do the universe find a way to basically get back, I'm paraphrasing, get back at these freaking murderers and these killers out here if the justice system doesn't? I wouldn't say it's the universe, but I do feel like it's God. Like God gonna get all these at some point, whether they alive or when they die. I just really feel like our creator being team is gonna serve the justice that should have been served if it's not served. If you get what I'm saying, let's go. Let's give it a go. If you know, you know.
Wanda Rodriguez was born on February 2nd of 1958 in Ponce, Puerto Rico. Wanda resided in Puerto Rico with her mother for a few years before relocating to New York City as a child. At the time, in the 50s into the 60s, there was a large wave of Puerto Ricans relocating to New York City by means of air travel, Puerto Ricans being the first group of Hispanics to move to New York City in large numbers. Wanda and her mother would go on to make the transition like many others. Once they reached New York City, Wanda and her mother embraced the Big Apple as their new home, and the possibilities here were endless. As Wanda and her mother made their home in New York City, later on in her teen years, Wanda would attend Washington Irving High School down in the Gramercy Park neighborhood of Manhattan, a school that originally started out as a branch of the Wadley High School for girls. Wanda, by all accounts, was described as a beautiful woman who was always happy, and it shows in her photos, where the smile she gave spoke 1,000 words. She always loved listening to music, dancing, spending quality time with her friends and family, and she was known to have a big sense of humor. She was known to be very funny and had the most contagious laugh. People loved being in her presence. If Wanda's friends and family ever needed her, she was always there for them. One day in the year 1980, Wanda was going about her daily routine and she hailed a cab to take her to her next destination. The driver of that vehicle would strike up a conversation with Wanda and the two would get to know each other. He was a man by the name of Antonio Espinal. When Wanda met Antonio, things started out the way they do in a lot of relationships. Happy times and hopes of creating a future together. And on June 7th of 1982, 2 years after they met, Wanda would be checked into the Sloan Hospital for Women, ready to deliver a baby. She would name her Yelitza. Wanda was 23 years old when she had Yelitza, and she was ready for any challenges that lied ahead. She was an extremely loving mother to her children. She was known to work very hard for whatever they might have needed. She would go to school to become a nursing assistant, but didn't do that for too long. Later on, working different jobs, including a hostess. Her last job working at Montezuma restaurant in the Kingsbridge section of the Bronx. Yelitza's relationship with her mother Wanda was filled with love and happy moments. A beautiful relationship where the two were more than just mother and daughter, but best friends. The two would spend every waking moment together. Wanda loved going to the movies, often taking Yelitza with her. They'd go to the old Paradise Theater on Grand Concourse. If it was a scary movie they were seeing, like Nightmare on Elm Street, Wanda would be sure to remind little Yelitza that this wasn't real, and she would be perfectly safe in her mother's arms. She was a big fan of the movie Ghost. The concept of being a spirit in the afterlife who would communicate with loved ones on the other side was something that made her wonder, and she would often ask her sister's opinion on this, asking if she thought spirits in the afterlife were real. If it wasn't the movies, they'd drive around with the windows down, listening to music at full blast and singing at the top of their lungs. Wanda encouraging Yelitza to sing along with her, blowing her kisses every once in a while when she glanced over, enjoying the moment together. Wanda would often write about little...
And you gotta enjoy the moments together because the moments do not last forever. Nothing lasts forever. We don't last forever. And sadly, her time got cut short. If you ask me, Wanda time got cut short.
Yelitza, when she journaled in her baby book, she would refer to little Yelitza as her first love. But in the midst of these beautiful moments between mother and daughter, there was a dark and often menacing presence that would begin to affect things at home in a very harmful way. Over the years, Antonio never kept himself fully present in the lives of Wanda, Yelitza, and Yelitza's little sister. He was away most of the time, but when he was around, any memory involving him was the furthest thing from pleasant. Antonio had suspicions that Yalitza wasn't really his daughter, but of course, this was an assumption he'd made on his own. Wanda truly only had eyes for him, and what she wanted was a family with him. But as the years went on, his behavior would become increasingly violent, physically abusing both Wanda and Yalitza. He was always drinking or under the influence of drugs, which would only make his violent outbursts even worse. Yalitza, just a small child at the time, would try her best to intervene and protect her mother, but it would only result in her being physically attacked as well, receiving beatings at his hand. And when she was just 4 years old, he would begin to assault Yalitza in other ways. Yalitza told Wanda about this and she confronted Antonio straight away, resulting in him stopping. He would blame those assaults on a friend of his, but he never denied what had happened to her. The relationship between Wanda and Antonio wasn't what she had imagined at all. Wanda had a few close friends and loved ones she could trust, but she mostly kept the hell she was living in to herself, a testament to the strength she possessed. By this point, little Yalitza was forced to mature beyond her years, always on high alert, knowing that this man was a threat to the safety of her loved ones, especially her mother. And on October 6th of 1990, little Yalitza's worst fears would come true, when things would take a tragic turn for the worse. On this day, Yalitza, her sister, and her mother had spent a full day out together. They'd visited Yalitza's grandmother before headed to their apartment on Webster Avenue. As they settled in for the night, Wanda would kick her night off by listening to a few new records that she either purchased or was gifted by her mother. About an hour later, Wanda's sister, Yalitza's aunt, would show up at Wanda's apartment unexpectedly, and she seemed to be speaking quickly and almost frantic. Wanda would send Yalitza to the room so she wasn't alerted to any pending dangers, but little Yalitza was able to read the room quickly and knew that something was wrong. So instead of going to her room, she hid behind the living room wall where she could still hear her aunt and her mother speaking. Yalitza's aunt could be heard pleading with Wanda, telling her she needed to grab the kids and leave with her back to Yalitza's grandmother's house, because Antonio was on the way to their home, and this time, he seemed different. He was off. Something was very wrong. She knew he was...
And see, I feel like he been off. You know what I'm saying? Like, he been freaking crazy. Like, I feel like, and I know y'all feel like it too, and we wish that Wanda would have left him a long freaking time ago, man. Like, this dude, I'm stuck, and I'm gonna forever throughout this video be stuck on the fact that he was assaulting his daughter, and his daughter was freaking 4 years old. And I'm not even talking about physical assault. Now, you make it up in your mind what other type of assault. Now, I'm not going to even say it, but you know what I'm talking about, man. Even if it's just touching her in some weird type of ways. Like, I'm stuck on that. And Wanda went through all that and endured and put up with all that, man. And it's like, man, Wanda, damn, I just wish you would have left a lot earlier and not even put up with this foolishness, because we was headed down a crash course road. At some point, this road that this dude headed down, is he gonna eventually crash out? And he crashed out on Wanda.
Coming because Antonio originally showed up at her place looking for Wanda, and his vibe was one she had never felt before. So she wanted to warn her sister. She begged for Wanda to at least let her take the children with her to make sure they were safe. Wanda would decline all offers to leave the home, only because she truly felt that there wasn't any real danger. She saw only the best in Antonio, stating that Antonio, quote, wouldn't hurt a fly. Words that still haunt Yalitza and her aunt to this very day. Yalitza knew she could have let her guard down and needed to be ready for when Antonio came back. The man she didn't see as a father, but as a monster. She grabbed a pair of scissors from the kitchen drawer and put it under the couch cushion. Then she sat down on it, so she had protection nearby. A short while after Yalitza's aunt left, the monster would arrive. He was calm and quiet. He said a few words to Wanda and then made his way to the bedroom at the far end of the apartment. He then laid down on the bed with his hands placed behind his head, staring at the ceiling, as if in deep thought of what was to come. Odd behavior even for him. Yalitza, who'd secretly followed Antonio to the room to see what he was up to, would hurry back to her mother before he could notice. When she got back to the living room, she would find Wanda sitting on the floor, still listening to records, continuing to enjoy her night. Antonio came back to the living room with 2 beer bottles in his hands and handed one to Wanda. She would stand up and the two of them tapped the bottles, presumably a short toast to the words they exchanged when he arrived. Wanda would make her way to the bathroom, Antonio right behind her, and Yalitza close behind Antonio on full alert. As Wanda walked into the bathroom, Antonio would quickly pull out a knife and unleash a heinous, unprovoked attack on Wanda, stabbing her repeatedly in a fury. For little Yelitsa, it was as if time began to move slow and nothing was real. In shock at what she was witnessing, she was snapped back to reality when she heard her mother's desperate pleas for help. Little Yelitsa began screaming for him to stop. Wanda called out Yelitsa's name and also called out Antonio's name in an attempt to have him come to his senses, but that never happened. Yelitsa realized that she needed to run for help and ran to the main entrance of the apartment, trying her best to jump and release the chain on the door that Antonio put on when he first arrived. She made it out of the home and began banging on the next door neighbor's door, screaming for help. She was able to explain the situation to her neighbor, and the neighbor's husband called 911.
Like, for Yelitsa, y'all, just put yourself, well, try to put yourself in Yelitsa's shoes, man. To see your freaking daddy kill your freaking mama right in front of you, and just in the manner that he did it, by just stabbing her multiple times, like, that's something for the rest of Yelitsa's life. She gonna remember that whole scene, how it all played out. Like, it's just something she would never freaking get, man. And Antonio is so premeditated with all this. Like, seriously, he literally went to the home, talked to her, little small talked to Wanda, went and laid down on the bed, looking up, you know what I'm saying, and just thinking about what he about to do, and still freaking did it. And before he did it, he even had the audacity or the whatever type of, just the assholeness of toasting her and giving her a bill, like, just toasting and, and it's making Wanda think everything all good, but he really thinking like, this gonna be the last bill, this the last drink she gonna ever have, because I'm about to kill her. Like, oh, man. Let's go.
They awaited an ambulance and police. Yelitsa was back and forth between her neighbor's home and the front door. She would peek to see if she saw anything and decided to bravely step out and have a look. And at this moment, she would again come face to face with Antonio as he ran down the stairs of the building. He would stop a few feet away from Yelitsa on his way to exit the building, staring directly at her while wiping his hands into each other. It was as if he was contemplating doing the same thing to her. The neighbor's husband heard Yelitsa react to seeing Antonio and ran out of the building to catch him. But at this point, he had already ran away. She would never see Antonio again. It was then that Wanda, having been savagely attacked, was crawling her way out of the apartment as she bled out. Yelitsa ran over to her mother and the two of them would lock eyes, but Wanda couldn't speak since Antonio's attack resulted in her jugular being cut.
Dang.
Neighbors from nearby buildings heard and saw commotion and ran to Wanda's aid, gathering up paper towels and doing what they could to stop the bleeding. A moment that always stuck with Yelitsa, since it was such a raw display of empathy, but also such a hard moment to accept, as her mother's final moments were spent bleeding out in her nightgown for everyone who was trying to help to see. An ambulance and police would arrive more than half an hour later, according to reports. Police asked Yelitsa if anyone was in the home, and she immediately explained that Antonio did this to her mother. The only person in the home that night was Yelitsa's little sister. Some cops would enter the apartment while others ran up the stairs, since when Antonio went up the stairs earlier on, he left bloody footprints. Police would find a pair of bloody socks belonging to Antonio on the rooftop. When Yelitsa saw him coming down the stairs beforehand, that's where he was returning from. The cops would comb through Wanda's belongings in the home in search of evidence, and the entire time, there was never any question of who was responsible. A large pocket folding knife was recovered at the scene. Yelitsa would help her little sister get ready, and the two of them were taken to Jacobi Hospital, where Yelitsa's grandmother and aunt were waiting. That night, Wanda Rodriguez succumbed to her injuries. After her mother's passing, needless to say, it was a very dark period for Yelitsa, her sister, and the rest of her mother's family. Their grandmother would foster both Yelitsa and her sister, and the two were very much loved and looked after. Yelitsa would spend years in therapy for the trauma she'd experienced. These hard moments only got harder with time, as more and more anger and sadness built up in Yelitsa, since Antonio was never apprehended for what he did. It would take its toll on the whole family, creating some very dark days. Yelitsa's grandmother, who suffered from dementia, mourned her daughter's death day in and day out while she was still alive, and the years that followed wouldn't get any easier.
See, that's the crazy part of this case. Like, I'm really not even wrapping my head around, like, 30-year cold case now solved. Like, why was this cold? Like, seriously, Yulissa literally seen it. Like, we all know who did it. It's witnesses in the damn apartment complex or apartment building, wherever they was at, who can report on this ish too. Like, I don't understand why he just got off scot-free. Am I missing something?
As Yulitza reached her adolescence, growing into her teen years, she would hold on to those memories that she had about what happened to her mother. She was growing angrier with time because this case continued to be unsolved. Now this would change Yulitza entirely, and she would start to become numb, and her emotions were either a roller coaster or they weren't there at all. Yulitza would also attend Washington Irving High School like her mother, where she made plenty of friends and tried her best to not feel those terrible feelings that she had become so familiar with. Yulitza was trying with everything she had to keep it together and not let those thoughts come out, but it wasn't easy. She would build many walls around her and never told any of her peers about what she had been through as a child and what it had done to her emotionally, since she didn't want to be seen as different. But Yulitza was hardened to a harsh reality at a very young age, often resulting in violent episodes or disregarding the feelings of those who genuinely cared for her. But it was the only way she knew to protect herself, since there were days that she felt she only had herself to count on. Over the years, when in the company of close friends and family, Yulitza would always bring up her mother's unsolved murder, discussing how something needed to be done. Yulitza would get annual manic episodes that would occur around the anniversary of Wanda's death. For every single year without her mother, she needed her, and it was a feeling that was impossible to shake. And at one point, a friend would ask Yulitza if she ever thought about getting on social media to try and get the case attention. She would explain her fears of putting her face out there, a fear of someone coming back for her, or perhaps Antonio being closer than anyone thought. She didn't know what he looked like at this point. She felt sure he was still alive. He had already made the Bronx Most Wanted list. The one article that ever came out about Wanda's death would describe the events as if it was clear who had done this. But now there was a different problem. What if he would try to keep her quiet? It was her biggest fear. At this point, Yulitza felt scared, nervous, and lost, but she was also very angry. This was the job of authorities to handle. Why wasn't much being done? In October of 2018, Yulitza had a manic episode around the time of her mother's death, but this time she decided to visit the precinct handling the case with her now husband, just looking for answers. They were treated less than friendly. She wasn't contacted by anyone handling her mother's case on any level. But Yulitza had been trying to get in contact with someone constantly, always given the runaround, left in the dark, leaving Yulitza with more unanswered questions. She also did interviews with numerous media outlets about her mother's case. She never received a reply when she was asking about when these would be released. They have never contacted her after those interviews. In 2018, she contacted the DA's office and was given a constant runaround. It was as if this case didn't even exist, and it was all a figment of Yulitza's imagination.
I really don't. I understand it now. I understand it being teen, but I just don't understand at the same time. Why don't nobody care that Yulitza mama got murdered? That Wanda got murdered by freaking Antonio, and there is literally, she's a witness to it. She's the daughter. We all know this happened. Why haven't the police chased this man and locked this man up? At this point, and I think there was 2018 being teen, when she was trying to get the DA involved and helping with this case and stuff. I'm pretty sure by this point, Antonio, for years now, just ain't even been hiding from the police. Like, he don't even think about if the police gonna come and arrest him today. Like, why did nobody care? And when I say nobody, I'm talking about like the government, the justice system, the whatever, the DA. I'm talking about them, man. Like, the police, like, man, like, even this one, make it even more stranger. Even the damn news stations not covering this ish. What the freak is up?
Nothing being done about her mother's case. And this is when Yulitza shifted her focus to social media. Yulitza intended on starting a TikTok page in 2021 and got the basics down when a friend showed her how to use it. She wasn't very familiar with the app before that. But then Yulitza's grandmother would become gravely ill and passed away in 2022. Understandably, Yelitsa took her time to grieve with her loved ones, but sometime after that, Yelitsa started with her first video, asking for some answers in this case. This was her birthday wish. She would continue posting videos talking about her mother's case, detailing the events of that night. And in July of 2022, she was tagged in the comments of my Evil Intentions TikTok channel. At the time, my channel had only gained attention beginning in the middle of June. My video started to rack up hundreds of thousands of views in a short period of time, and I saw a mention from Yelitsa. I'd been alerted to her situation shortly before and reached out. Yelitsa provided me with the information on her mother's case, information that can't even be found anywhere due to the little attention it initially received. The video would gather thousands of views, words of support, and hopes of gathering any information possible. Yelitsa was starting to become driven in her goal, and the videos just continued to gain momentum. She paid one more visit to the DA's office and nobody could find any more information on her mother's case. She was furious as she was being shuffled around once again, so upset she was fighting tears. She stated that she was taking her story to social media and would contact every news reporter she could find, not maliciously, but because she needed answers. The weight of this had become heavier than ever, and just a few short days later, she received a call from the DA's office. This conversation was unlike the others. It was odd for Yelitsa, who had been trying so long to get eyes on this case. She was complimented for her strength and for how long she'd been harboring this. Yelitsa's videos would continue to gain momentum and the video on my page continued to grow. That's when people began commenting that they recognized Antonio from a neighborhood in the Dominican Republic. Yelitsa would then get a message that left her feeling stunned. Someone on TikTok messaged her and stated that Antonio was dead. She couldn't believe it. This same person would also send her messages on the Instagram account Yelitsa created for her mother's case. The person swore Antonio was dead, and that if she wanted, they would even take her to his grave. In her own words, Yelitsa asked for answers for 32 years, and when she took matters into her own hands, the universe answered with full force. Yelitsa was contacted by a detective who was now new to the Wanda Rodriguez case, but she had every intention of doing what she could to help Yelitsa get answers. She explained that she was given this case and promised to keep Yelitsa in the loop. Yelitsa was sent documents with updated photos of Antonio, paperwork from his time in DR. Her first clear indication that Antonio was alive and free for the last 32 years, up until recently. Sometime later, the detective would say she'd received information that Antonio had died, but she needed time to really confirm. Yelitsa would let her know that she heard the same, leaving Yelitsa feeling very uneasy, like he was possibly still alive, or the information was just too sudden to be real. Something that she still sometimes struggles with even now. It felt like now there was no way to get justice for her mother. But then, she received a message that changed everything, and very fast. A young woman messaged Yelitsa on TikTok stating that her mother not only knew Antonio, but knew what happened to him, and that she was related to him. The young woman created a TikTok for her mother so she could communicate with Yelitsa directly, since she was the one with all the recollections according to her. And Yelitsa, of course, wanted to confirm that this was all legitimate. She would keep up with her social media, posting constantly, replying to all comments, and was contacted by Antonio's first cousin. This woman would explain that Antonio was living in DR. It seems that he went there right after he committed the crime. She would also go on to explain that members of the family in DR knew about the murder, except Antonio had told them it was self-defense. Yelitsa quickly corrected her, explaining that she was there to see it with her own eyes, and Antonio, pulling out a knife on Wanda, was something she had seen even before the murder. He had threatened her this way before, right in front of his daughter, just weeks before the murder even took place. This wasn't self-defense, it was premeditated. The anger and fury in Yelitsa's replies to those messages were unfiltered. She wanted this family to understand the horror this man had created for her, her sister, her husband, and the rest of her family. The weight of not knowing. Yelitsa would take her time to collect her thoughts, and once she felt she was in a better mental space, she had more talks with Antonio's cousin, who would reveal some truly startling information about Antonio's death. At first, Yelitsa didn't just want to take this woman's word for it. What if she was making all of this up? But it was confirmed that everything she was saying was true, because there were some things that she mentioned that Wanda had mentioned in her baby book that she had journaled in, creating a very eerie moment for Yelitsa, who realized this woman really was around for all of these moments. Yelitsa felt like she was running on autopilot. Everything felt surreal, and now, new details would make this entire ordeal even heavier. It turns out, Antonio spent the rest of his years after that in hiding. He would hide in a certain part of the mountains, only coming to visit his family and other child once in a while. Every moment he spent free physically, he spent trapped mentally, living a lie, doing his best to justify his heinous and cowardly actions. Those around him knew about what he had done, and they all pushed it to the back of their minds as if anything could ever justify his actions. At some point, Antonio would end up picking up an odd job doing some yard work, when by complete chance, he was badly electrocuted due to faulty wiring exposed in the ground. According to his family member who had been taking care of him after his injuries, he suffered. He suffered for a long 7 years, all of his skin melting off from the currents that ran through his body. Over time, his organs would begin to fail. His health would deteriorate slowly. His health got so bad that he technically died and was brought back to life by EMS workers. Who knows what he saw when he almost reached the other side, but whatever it was, it terrified him, as he would become hysterical, begging those around him to let him die. The woman taking care of him, a woman with a heavy religious background, would tell him that if he wanted to go into the afterlife with peace, he needed to accept what he had done, to be in God's good graces. He would begin to tell the true story of what happened the night that he killed Wanda, but he was stopped before making a full confession. He would die in 2021, succumbing to his severe injuries over time, taking his evil deeds with him to the grave.
And I just gotta say real quick, I'm glad that his ass got electrocuted and his skin started to melt and fall off or whatever was happening to him. But that is nothing compared to what's happening to him in the freaking afterlife. You know what I'm saying, Bean Team? I seriously believe in it, man. Y'all already know. I believe in it, man. I believe there is a God, there is a creator. And Jose is saying, like, is it like the universe that's getting back to you? And like I said, I just rather say God, because God is the universe. God is freaking everything. Everything is God. You know what I'm saying, man? So I just really feel like dude got what he deserved. Not just on earth, but in the freaking afterlife. This is one of those rare ones where, and this is why Jose do such a great job, man, because he cover those cases that you don't hear a lot of. And not only do you not hear a lot of this, even I'm talking about this specific case. Not only do you not hear a lot of these cases, but even in this case, there was not a lot of coverage when it happened. Crazy.
It would be easy to think that today's story is one of divine justice, one that shows that no matter how far you run or how much time has passed, those responsible for taking their rage out on the innocent will end up paying one way or another. But for someone like Yelitsa, she wanted more. She wanted him to be held responsible, to be officially tried as the murderer he was and always will be. But instead, he was never apprehended. She never experienced any real communication from authorities. She was constantly left in the dark by those who should be getting answers. His family knew, and justice was never served. The words of an 8-year-old child wise beyond her years should have been taken much more serious. She saw with her own eyes, and while this can be a very traumatic experience for a child, she always maintained her story. This so-called man, the monster who tormented her and her mother for so long, got away with cold-blooded murder. If it wasn't for Yelitsa taking matters into her own hands and facing her fears, putting herself out there to find the truth, she would more than likely still be wondering, waiting, not knowing if the monster from her worst memories could still get to her too. If you heard of Yelitsa's story, it can be mistaken for something out of a Hollywood plot, the type of movie that Yelitsa would see in a theater with her beloved mother. Her mother reminded her that the scary stuff on the screen wasn't real. The type of movie where a family member commits a heinous crime and the survivor of the story spends the rest of her days sleeping with one eye open, looking over her shoulder, wondering if and when that evil will return. The truth is, their reality with Antonio was far worse than any Hollywood script. Hollywood endings don't always portray the harsh realities of questions left unanswered. The survivor doesn't always come face to face with the monster again for a final showdown. Sometimes the boogeyman isn't real at all. Sometimes he's just a coward who got lucky and suffered through his own hell that he earned himself. Sometimes justice comes in the form of a woman facing her fears and fighting day in and day out to get the truth, putting her story out there for those to see, to maybe give those in similar situations strength to keep going. Sometimes justice is when the universe handles things, and sometimes that just isn't enough. Yelitsa has a family of her own now, a beautiful 19-year-old daughter and a husband. She hopes to get her story on paper as she continues her healing journey, hoping to help others see that there is someone out there who understands what it's like to go through something like this. She remains proud of her family for raising her and her sister right, and also very proud of herself for how far she's come. She gained a second mother in her grandmother, and although they had both passed, she knows her mother and grandmother are watching over her, reunited, proud of the woman that she's become, proud of her strength. And as for the cold case of Wanda Rodriguez, well, this case is officially closed. I asked Yalitza if she could say one thing to Antonio today, what would it be? This was her response. Antonio, you were and will always be a coward. I truly believe there will never be any forgiveness for you, and your rotten soul will be lost forever. I always wanted to know, why did you take her from us? And now I will never know. I am looking forward to seeing your tomb soon and finally bury all this pain and anger with you to be able to live in peace. I am ready to put down this cross, move on, and cut anything that has given you power over me. I will also leave your last name. You will be a past, putrid, and dying memory of all the shit I've lived and I am leaving behind. You are nothing. Rest in peace to Wanda Rodriguez, and my deepest condolences go out to Yalitza and her loved ones.
Rest in peace to Wanda Rodriguez, and condolences to Yalitza and everybody in her family who had to go through this stuff, man. Like, because, hey, I agree 100% with Yalitza. Like, what his name is, I done forgot his name. That's just how unimportant he is. Antonio, like, you was a piece of you know what. Glad you got what you got, and I'm happy. And in my faith, I truly believe that God really got you when you passed away. You know what I'm saying, man? It's almost like you got double got. You got with the electrocution and all that pain and suffering, and then being for real, being seen, even when he was still alive after the murder, everybody who he was around pretty much knew he did it, from what Jose was telling us. And not only that, like, he was living in the mountains, hiding out and stuff. Like, he was feeling what he had did pretty much for the rest of his life on earth, I guess. I don't know. We don't really know how true that is as far as like what he really was going through on a day-to-day basis. But I just hope that his life after he killed Wanda was a freaking living hell to the time that he died. My friends. This was a great video from Jose. It was a blast from the past from Jose. Like I said, y'all, he put it out 2 years ago. And I can also understand why Yalitza just, it's closure, but it's not the closure that she wanted. I can understand her point on that completely. She wanted to see him actually go to trial and do all that stuff and actually go to prison and stuff. I not mostly, but I completely understand what she coming at with that one. But at the end of the day, being team, sometimes we just gotta leave our faith in God and just let it live. What's the slogan or the saying? Let God and let live, or something like that, man. And this is one of those cases that we just gotta do all that and just keep faith in whoever we believe in. You know what I'm saying, man? And just believe, my friends, that hey, it's gonna get better, man. At the end of the day, man, I know it's hard for you, Yalitza, and it's gonna forever be hard. But day by day, days that go on, the more that she lives, the more that I hope that things just continue to get better in her life. And man, one more time, rest in peace to Wanda Rodriguez. And I digress, being team. I'm gonna let y'all go now. I appreciate y'all coming on back as always. And before you leave, just please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And remember this: love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.
If you're feeling lonely today, come along and throw your cares away. We're really glad that you're our friend, and this is a friendship that'll never ever